Happy Monday, November 24th, 2025. We've got some really cool stuff to talk about today in comic book news. There was a Superman comic that you're not going to believe where it was found and what it actually sold for. It broke all the records. We've got a new crossover event for DC because apparently they can't get enough of those right now, which I'm very happy with. Let's go. And then we have a new X-Men title coming out, which also sounds very exciting, and more. So let's just jump right into it. All right, a vintage comic sold at auction is now the most expensive book of all time. That's right, a Superman #1 from 1939, okay, sold for $9 million. Per the New York Times, a new record was set for the most expensive comic book ever sold on Thursday, November 20th. The sale was made through Heritage Auctions and saw a 9.0 CGC graded copy of 1939 Superman #1 sell for a whopping $9.12 million with fees, beating out the previous record by more than $3 million. That is insane. And what's even more insane is the story of how they found this. So the issue of Superman #1 in question was discovered by three brothers who were in the process of sorting through their late mother's belongings in California. While the trio were previously aware that their mother and uncle shared a comic book collection, none were aware of what books it consisted of before their discovery. It was reported that a handful of comics, including the now record-breaking copy of Superman #1, were found in a storage box in an attic where they had been sitting effectively forgotten for several decades. All right, let me tell you something. If someone came to me and they were like, hey, I found this comic book in my attic, is it worth anything? And they showed me a 9.0 of Superman #1, I'd immediately be like, oh, that's just a facsimile. It's not worth anything. But obviously I'd have to take a closer look and see that there's, a 10 cent or whatever price on it and see that the ads are from 1939 and everything else like that. And then for it to be complete too, because it's a 9.0. So it's definitely complete. And think about that. I mean, back in the day, they used to put coupons in there. They used to put centerfolds. I don't know what the interior of that comic is, but I'll tell you this, they put stuff in those comics that was meant to be cut out and mailed in and stuff like that, which is what has, devalued a lot of these older comics. And so finding it not only as a 9.0, but complete is insane. I mean, even just exposure to the air will affect a comic book that old. We're talking about 86 years, right? Those old comics were printed on newsprint, okay? Not the nice glossy comic book paper that we get now that will probably last a lot longer. So you get discoloration, you get kind of yellowing of the paper and stuff like that, and especially if it was exposed to any light. But the fact that it was in a box in, probably maybe in a bag and board, I don't even know, it kept this thing in pristine condition. And it's amazing that people are still finding these. As we approach in just 15 years, these books will be a century old. And now these three brothers are millionaires because they found this expensive piece of, folded newsprint in their mom's attic. The last thing I want to say too is that this is actually not the first appearance of Superman. First appearance of Superman was in Action Comics. But either way, this is one of the craziest, if not the most crazy comic book find maybe ever, So yeah, really cool story. And it's just awesome to see the value of, comics where they've come from, where they're going. All right, let's talk about a new crossover with DC Comics. I love all the crossovers that are happening right now in the comic book industry. Even if you look at we got the Energon universe not too long ago now, and that's an awesome crossover with G.I. Joe and the Transformers and stuff like that, as well as the digital exclusive crossovers with the Fantastic Four and the Flash and Shazam and Thor. So all really cool stuff. But here we go. We've got a new one, which is going to be Homelander, Sub-Zero, and a few others, which we'll get to, going up against the DC characters in the DCKO event. So let's talk about this. DCKO Boss Battle #1 is an upcoming one-shot that sees icons of the comic book publishing giant, such as Wonder Woman and various others, going head-to-head with a group of villains unlike anyone they have faced before, particularly because they are not native to their universe. Among the notable foes from this lineup are Homelander from The Boys and the Mortal Kombat franchise's Sub-Zero. Okay, now let's just go ahead and look at the full matchup here. We've got Samantha Strong, Vampirella, Sub-Zero, Red Sonja, Homelander, and Annabelle. That is crazy. I love this. It's going to be very interesting. I think the biggest players here are Sub-Zero and Homelander. Although what is Annabelle capable of? She might be able to do some crazy stuff just because, if you think about the things that happen in a horror film, the ghost is always able to do things that seem absolutely crazy, appearing in different places and almost like the use of magic, you know? And I actually think Annabelle might be one of the scariest ones to go up against on this team. I don't know that much about Samantha Strong. It's a bear, and obviously it's kind of a bad bear. And we have a bone saw right there in the hand, I'm pretty sure, and a smock to keep herself clean. So that's just straight up creepy. Now, Vampirella and Red Sonja are staples of the comic book industry. They're also very cool characters. Now, I don't know that much about their power set, but I know that they are like fan love characters that still buy their comic books to this day. So very cool. Sub-Zero, come on, Mortal Kombat is awesome. And then Homelander, Superman like Homelander. You know, I would say Superman is definitely more powerful than Homelander, but have we ever had a crossover from the boys into DC? If we have, please let me know in the comments. But this is a matchup that people have talked about for a long time. Homelander versus whoever. According to the comic's official solicitation, the likes of Superman, Aquaman, and other remaining champions in the KO tournament come at odds with these various out-of-this-world characters when, as the final rounds are being prepared, they discover that the Omega energy needed to crown the winner as King Omega is in short supply. The epic crossover promises to deliver matchups of unimaginably epic proportions. And I absolutely agree with that. This is really, really cool. I think, you know, Scott Snyder is doing a great job with the DC KO event. He's been, you know, steering the ship for DC for a while now, and I think he's been doing absolutely awesome. And I can't wait to see where this all goes. All right, let's talk about this new era of X-Men that we have coming up. It's always exciting when we kind of get a fresh start for the X-Men. Every writer goes in their own direction. You had Jonathan Hickman doing, you know, Krakoa, right? Which some people really like. Some people, you know, I think with Krakoa, if Jonathan Hickman had been allowed to stay completely in control of that story, it would have ended better. But it was selling really well and they wanted to extend it. And I think that kind of led to its downfall. The New X-Men by Grant Morrison, which was really focused on, you know, a school and students and stuff like that, which I think this is going back to, it's going back to, you know, the school for gifted youngsters or whatever it is, the Xavier Institute, which I always love seeing a return to that for the X-Men because that's what's most classic for me. That's what we saw in the first X-Men movie, and I just think it's one of my favorite parts of, you know, the whole X-Men lore is their school and bringing in new X-Men and new characters that way. So per a press release from Marvel Comics, the next X-Men series of 2026 was unveiled, and X-Men United sounds like everything the mutants of the Marvel Universe have been needing for years. The upcoming series will find the X-Men assembling to not just replace the beloved school they lost, but also prepare for whatever Marvel Comics' Shadows of Tomorrow event has in store for them. Written by Eve L. Ewing, with art by Tygo Palma, and 2 connecting covers by artist Stefano Caselli. X-Men United #1 is set to arrive in stores March 11th, 2026. So here we go. We have X-Men United #1, the 2 covers that are connecting. This is the full image. This looks so awesome. Let's just talk about these characters for 1 second here. We've got classic outfits. We've got the brown Wolverine. We got classic Emma Frost here in the front. Looks like she's kind of going to be leading the charge here, probably the you know, principal of this school that they're creating. We have Rogue in her classic costume. We've got an updated Cyclops costume here. We've got a very classic looking Nightcrawler costume. My favorite X-Men, Kitty Pryde back here, of course, with Lockheed the Dragon down here as well, looking awesome. All new Wolverine back here. We've got Magneto back in a very classic look. Magic. We've got Psylocke, Gambit, again, very classic. Beast, Storm. We can just go on and on. We've got Iceman and even Deadpool hiding back here, and Juggernaut as well. So love to see it. And yeah, let me know what you think about this and if you're excited for this new era of the X-Men. All right, let's talk about this. A thrilling new era of DC Vertigo is about to begin. So this is really exciting for fans of Vertigo comics. We had some of the most famous comics of all time coming out of the original Vertigo. There was Sandman, Hellblazer, Preacher, Fables, 100 Bullets, and more. These are really big names. I mean, some people consider Sandman to be one of the best comic books ever written. So the fact that this is returning is definitely going to have a lot of fans very excited. In a press release from DC Vertigo, the fan favorite line is set to return this coming February with 3 brand new series and the return of a beloved title that is set to shake things up in a major way. The return of DC Vertigo begins on February 4th with the release of The Nice House by the Sea #7, written by James Tynion IV. Okay, James Tynion is kind of a writer where everything he touches turns to gold. I mean, look at Something is Killing the Children, his Batman run, or just anything that he's written. I mean, people really love James Tynion. So we've also got the very first issues of Bleeding Hearts, End of Life, and The Peril of the Brutal Dark, an Ezra Kane mystery, coming to DC Vertigo as well. Let's take a look at the covers of these comics. We've got The Nice House by the Sea, number 7. That's the one being written by James Tynion IV. We also have Bleeding Hearts here, number 1, End of Life, number 1, and The Peril of the Brutal Dark, an Ezra Kane mystery. That's a really long name, but these all look really cool. And like I said, Vertigo Comics is a fan favorite line of comics from DC. I think this is very interesting. The Vertigo comics are typically more of like a horror genre of comics. If you look at the stuff like, Sandman and Hellblazer, for example. By the way, I loved Hellblazer. The Hellblazer by Garth Ennis is one of my favorite comics, and it's what they kind of based the Constantine movie on, with the whole concept of him smoking and getting lung cancer and then kind of finding a way out of it, based on Garth Ennis's Vertigo Comics Hellblazer run. So just another really cool thing. And yeah, I'm just interested to see where this is going to go. Are you excited for the return of DC Vertigo? Are you going to be reading these comics? Let me know in the comments down below. All right, let's talk about the new comic books coming out November 26, 2025. That's this week. Absolute Batman. It's been absolutely amazing. It looks like we have Bane here on the cover. I cannot wait to read this issue. I've caught up on Absolute Batman. I think it's one of the best comics I've read in quite a while, and I want it to keep going as long as it possibly can. I love the Absolute universe. We've also got Absolute Wonder Woman, which again has been great. I don't comment down below and tell me which Absolute title you think is the weakest and do you think is the strongest. I'm curious to see people's opinion on the Absolute universe. I would say altogether it's pretty strong. Even at the Absolute universe's bottom tier is still, I think, good comics. So I don't know if that would be like The Flash maybe, or Green Lantern. I think some people don't like Green Lantern that much. But yeah, I want to know what you think about the Absolute universe. Like, what titles would you put at the top? Which ones would you put at the bottom? We've also got a new Detective Comics issue. I like this new Batman run going on right now. I'm not sure if that Detective Comics issue ties into it, but I am reading that. We've got DCKO number 2. This is a must read, a must pick up. This event has been kind of crazy so far, so very cool. We've got DCKO as part of this Superman number 32 issue coming out, and then another tie-in. It looks like a lot of tie-ins to DCKO. This is the Justice League tie-in right here. I think this one is definitely important to read. And also, just to mention, I've been reading Justice League Unlimited to make sure I'm caught up on everything, in reading the DCKO event. And it was an awesome idea to say, okay, now every single hero is part of the Justice League, literally every single one. So interesting concept, and it's been really cool. DCKO, The Flash, another tie-in. We've got Green Arrow. I'm not reading this. Let me know if you are and if it's any good. Green Lantern. Oh, it looks like we have a crossover, or not a crossover, but we have the classic team up of Green Lantern and Green Arrow in this comic. So that's pretty cool. If you know anything about comics from the Bronze Age, that was a very classic matchup, those two characters. I guess they both wear green, so maybe that's why they put them together, but always good to see those two together. We've got Geiger. This has really, been great. I have a comic book club that we do, and we recently read the first 6 issues of Geiger, which were awesome, and this is definitely a great one to pick up. I mean, it's Jeff Johns, one of the best comic book writers of all time. If there's a Jeff Johns book coming out, you should probably be reading it. I'm just being honest here, okay? We have this Immortal Legend Batman. I'm not sure what that is, but it looks really cool. The cover looks great. We've got the Mortal Thor with another beautiful cover from Alex Ross. So, I mean, I would buy these books almost just for the cover, but also it's from writer Al Ewing, who we know did an amazing job on many different stories, but especially Immortal Hulk. And he's been, working his magic with this latest run of Thor. That's been awesome. So, wow, a lot of really good comics coming out this week, by the way. People are going to have some fat stacks for sure. We have the Infernal Hulk number 1. Now, I did not read this latest run of Hulk, but this looks so cool. Maybe I get into this. Maybe I pick this up. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't know. This looks awesome. I want to see what is the Infernal Hulk. Let me know in the comments. Department of Truth still going makes me very happy to see. Of course, this being written by James Tynion IV, the man who everything he writes turns to gold. A great writer is all I'm trying to say. And I definitely think this is a good title. I do have the library edition of the first volume of this, which I've read and was great. So I got to catch up on my reading of Department of Truth, but the concept is really interesting. And this is a great indie comic. If you're looking for for something to read that is a dark, suspenseful story, you know. We've got Black Cat #4. Now, I just want to comment on this cover real quick. It kind of looks like the negative space cover of Spider-Man. Also, it shows her kind of going through like a laser field like you would see in a classic heist movie. I think that's pretty cool. So whoever did that cover, great job. Harley Quinn, I'm not reading this current run, but I like Harley Quinn as a character, and I might go back and try to read this whole thing at some point. And then we've got some more stuff here. We've already talked about most of the big hitters, but I'll just say real quick, Gunslinger Spawn, a fan favorite from the Spawn universe. We've got Daredevil and Punisher, looks pretty cool. And there's just a bunch of other, you know, really cool comics coming out, but those were the big hitters. Let me know what you're reading and if I missed anything important coming out this week. Now, quickly, let's take a look at the omnibuses coming out this week. Okay, we have Uncanny X-Men by Brian Michael Bendis. I don't know that much about this run, but Bendis does have some really good comics under his belt. He's a little more hit or miss for me personally, but this does look pretty cool just based on the cover. I'm interested to see what people think. Are people excited for this Uncanny X-Men run by Brian Michael Bendis coming out in omnibus form? Please let me know. We have The Return of Wolverine, another Wolverine omnibus that I do not have. So I have a huge collection of omnibuses, and bigger than most people you'll see. I mean, I have a basically like a Gem Mint Collectibles level omnibus collection, but I have been slowing down on my omnibus, purchasing for the last 5 to 6 months. But one thing I never had in my collection was the Wolverine Omnis. Those are one section of my Omni collection that is the most lacking. So it's intimidating to start trying to pick them all up now because there's so many, but hey, we got another one. That's pretty great. Oh, and look at this one with the Sentinel. Oh my gosh. And he's on the motorcycle. Heck yeah. I definitely want to get this variant of the omnibus for sure. All right. That's it for our comic book news for this week. Let me know if I missed anything. Let me know which stories you're excited about or which comic books you're reading currently and that you're going to pick up this week. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.